What's up, guy? What is up, guy? Welcome back to what Josue has to say. If you're new here, I am Josue, and this is what I have to say. Today's episode, we have Mr. Matt Haggman in the house to talk about a new platform called Opportunity Miami, which helps drive the city economically through new opportunities, ideas, etc. And I honestly hadn't heard about this, Matt, prior to your team reaching out. So I read up on it, and I think it's a really incredible opportunity from what I understand. So I want you to give me a little feedback. But before we start, who are you? Give us a little background so that people know.
Well, first of all, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here, and Opportunity Miami is brand new, so the opportunity to be able to sit down and talk about it with you is something I'm super grateful for. So I'm someone who's like so many in Miami, comes from someplace else, and so originally from Boston, moved here 20 years ago, December of 2001. Moved here to work as a journalist. And thought I'd be here for a year or two and off to another city.
Look at you now.
Instead, found home, and Miami is my home. And met my wife here, Dade, and had the great fortune over 10 years to work as a journalist here, most of the time at the Miami Herald, and then was at a place called Knight Foundation, where I had the opportunity to start a whole new program, and in this case, focused on building a tech community here in Miami. And went through a short, happy life as a political candidate. That chapter is closed, but that was an amazing experience. And now have the real privilege of leading a new initiative that we started a little less than a year ago called Opportunity Miami.
So Opportunity Miami is, I want you to speak a little bit on what it is and what it brings to the table. But when I was reading up on it, it's kind of like a product of Beacon Council.
That's right. So Beacon Council is the economic development organization for Greater Miami, for Miami-Dade County, right? And Beacon Council's core work and why it was set up like some 35 years ago is all around trying to help bring companies to Miami and drive job growth here in Miami. To bring companies here and help them expand here, right? And fundamentally how Beacon Council is measured is really around job growth and economic development. It's the economic development organization, so public-private organization for Miami-Dade County. But within that, they had previously had something called One Community, One Goal, which tried to sort of take us out of, this month, this quarter, and think about the long term. Think about the next 5 years, next 10 years, next 20 years. And it was that initiative when I came on to Beacon Council that had the opportunity to reimagine. And looking at it, it felt like a moment in time where it was time for a new name, a new focus, a new strategy. And the new name is Opportunity Miami. And it really comes from the idea that so many of our biggest challenges as a community from an economic perspective present really our greatest opportunities, right? I mean, as one example, as we talk about sea level rise and climate change, if we really lean into that and see that not just as something that presents an existential threat for our community, but as it's something that actually presents the business opportunity of our lifetime. That's going to grow jobs, that's going to expand our economy, that's going to propel innovation and entrepreneurship. So that's where the name comes from. And then the focus, sort of thinking about these next 5 years, next 10 years, and really how we've thought about it is, what's the Miami of 2040, right? For the child coming up today, that's about when they're going to be ready to enter the workforce. What are they going to find? And what can we do today to build that future? And from an economic perspective, we really hit upon three things that struck us as really being those things that if we do these things well, Miami will do well, Miami will win. And the three things are innovation and entrepreneurship, talent and inclusion, sustainability and resilience. So I'll quickly unpack that. So as we think about entrepreneurship and innovation, we want to be a place that there's been a lot of work on this already, and during COVID, we've seen a huge spike in this, right? But the places that will win going forward are the places where we're launching new ventures, and lots of them. That's where the new jobs come from, right? And so Miami continuing to lean into a place where people are building new ideas, starting new ventures, and this tech, but also, small businesses, right? But being a place of starters. And that is so much in the Miami DNA, right? And so continuing to leverage that. Two, talent inclusion. We really think that we have the ability through our universities, but also through non-traditional education, through certificate programs, boot camps, apprenticeships, to build a uniquely skilled, diverse workforce. I mean, something that can be differentiated from regional workforces across North America, right? And that's really in front of us. and just thinking about the Miami 2040, that's what we could be talking about, right? I mean, already we're here at a place, our city, our community, our home, where 54% of the population of Miami-Dade County is born outside the U.S. No city can.
Wow, I didn't know
It's
that
crazy,
demographic.
right?
Yeah.
No city can compare to that. Not New York, not L.A.
Very true.
Right? And so it's such an asset. And then the third thing is around sustainability and resilience from a business perspective. And here's the idea. It's that, over the next 20 years, we are transitioning to a net zero economy. That is an economy putting no more CO2, no more climate warming gases into the air than we're taking out, right? And to do that, every part of our economy has to transition, right? And we're from how we get around, how we produce food, how we build things, where we get our power from, how we cool our homes, all of that stuff has to transition.
Lots of job opportunity.
Exactly, right? And we're already seeing it in the auto industry. Think about EVs and Tesla and all that. That transition is underway. And the thesis is we're going to see it in lots of other parts of we're going to see that in all parts of our economy. And so it's the places that really lean into this opportunity that will really benefit from it. And you know what? People are yelling this from the rooftops if we'll just listen. I mean, Bill Gates wrote a whole book about this transition, and he said the places that build the zero carbon companies of the future are the places that lead the global economy. So let's be one of those places.
Miami definitely has the potential for it, specifically because of its drive and its workforce, and because of where we're at environmentally.
Totally.
It's like we have a threat. Right?
100%.
So it's
100%.
in our best interest.
So let's own it. Yeah. Let's be like, hey, we have this challenge. We're already people associate the vulnerabilities of sea level rise are clearly associated with Miami. Everyone look right.
I mean, look at all the floods we have on Brickell every other day when
100%.
there's like 3 minutes of rain.
So let's own it, right? Let's own it and be like, we're going to be the place that comes up with the solutions.
So I want to rewind a little bit.
Sure.
Because I honestly had no idea what the Beacon Council was. I have
course.
never heard of any of these things. So I'm sure the majority of people listening to this have no idea either. You mentioned Beacon Council kind of goes out and finds business or entrepreneurships to bring to Miami.
Yeah.
What's the method of that? How do they make that happen?
Sure. So there are a couple different ways. I mean, one is that there can be companies deciding that they want to either move their headquarters or they want to open an office in a city. And so there can be some formal mechanisms there are these things, site selectors. They're actually people who help companies expand to new communities, and then they'll come to a place like Beacon
scouts.
Council. Exactly. Come to a place like Beacon Council and say, look, we have a company that wants to move, and Beacon Council then helps make the case for Miami so that company will choose to come here. Right? And so that can be from helping them understand places where they might want to locate, understanding local laws and regulations. That can be introductions that are really helpful, all of those kind of things. And so so that's one way. Another way is that, you'll see companies themselves will reach out, right? Companies like, hey, I want to be in Miami. Well, a place that you can go and have help across all of Miami-Dade County is that Beacon Council is there to help.
So do they go directly toward, let's say I'm in New York and or it's, hey, I'm going to reach out to Beacon Council's like where I reach out to move my company, like type of thing?
Yes. That's why Beacon Council is set up.
Gotcha.
And so now you do see cities that have economic development, departments that work, that you'll see companies will work with. But the idea of Beacon is it's countywide. Right, so it's like, so you want to come to Miami-Dade County, someplace in Greater Miami. You can go to Beacon, and then Beacon will work with you, and then work with all the different cities we have across our community, and figuring out what's that best place. And then, but really making the case, right? I think during COVID, it's not as hard to make the case about Miami with so many people coming here, which has been so amazing. Yeah, totally.
We don't got to try too hard.
But, you think about 10 years ago, this is before, I've been at Beacon Council for less than 2 years, but, you go back, 10 years ago, I think there was a narrative about Miami that, that people still thought, Crockett and Tubbs were still here. You know what I mean? And so
now we have Citadel moving in.
That's now we got exactly. So, which is, by the way, which I know for me, this is why I've, it's the thing where I love Miami so much is how it's in constant motion, right? It's a place that continues to change, that there are no guardrails. I mean, think about just in the time, at least in my time here, watching the development of the arts community, watching the redevelopment of the urban core neighborhoods, across Miami, watching Miami now become such a center of tech and innovation.
Oh my God, it's grown so much.
And to take all those things, right? And that's in 2 decades, And so the fun part is sitting here, we can think about, okay, what's next?
It's insane to think how, I don't know, a few years ago I would have told you, oh, what's the next tech hub? Miami. What? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But
Party Town Miami? Beach Miami? Nah.
Right. And I heard a lot of that. So when I was at Knight Foundation, we started the program in 2012 about building a tech community in Miami. And that involved everything from funding co-working spaces, which were almost non-existent here at the time, to mentor programs, to convenings of different kinds, to conferences like Emerge Americas, all around trying to build that infrastructure, that ecosystem. But, fundamental to all that work was around trying to drive a whole mind shift, right? To rethink what's possible about Miami.
That's how it starts, right?
Totally. And it's like when you really open yourself up to this idea of Miami can be this, then it's suddenly like, oh, and here what's so great is I think this around tech and innovation. Well, there's so much work to do. If this were a baseball game, we're still in the second inning, I would argue, right? It's early. But we've shown these amazing gains. If you want to build a groundbreaking company, you can do it in Miami, and so that's what's exciting. It's just this amazing sense of possibility.
So you mentioned, maybe you can explain this to me a little better, that Beacon Council is publicly and privately funded, so then it's half tax dollars, half...
It's not quite half. So I think right now it's about 60-40.
Okay.
So about 60%, it might be a little higher, it's like 65% comes from taxpayers, and then 35% comes from businesses that contribute. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's public, and it actually is a standalone organization, and by contract, it is the official economic development organization for Miami.
For the county.
Yeah.
Okay. So then Opportunity Miami will, I guess, take over completely, or what's the...
No,
what's
so
the
Opportunity
vision there?
Miami, this is...
It's like a branch.
That is, yes. And what this is all about trying to be that branch of the Beacon Council, but the community, about trying to be a platform to help us think about where we go next.
So that's what I wanted to hit on.
Yeah.
What are the approaches that are going to be taken to make this a platform? What channels, what avenues are going to be taken to...
100%. This is something we thought a lot about, and this is something we're really
because it's got to be in people's faces. Otherwise, it's
not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and honestly, the model used previously for efforts like this that are all about trying to sort of galvanize thinking and focus on a community's future. Before, for example, it was around doing a big report, right? And in fact, 10 years ago, that was done with the predecessor initiative to Opportunity Miami, One Community, One Goal, did a 4-part, 500-page report on Miami's future. And it was a great report. But, in thinking about it now and talking with, Mike Finney, our late CEO, and the board at Beacon Council, what I shared was that, number one of the challenges with that approach is generally peak engagement is the day it's announced. And then it sort of trickles down. Yeah. But the second thing that to me presented the biggest reason why to take a different course is that, look, we could spend 6 months, come up with what we think are great ideas that will drive the next 5 to 10 to 20 years that will be most important for Miami 2040. And then over those next 2 years, all of those ideas could be obsolete. Yep. Things are changing so fast. Think about the world before COVID and after, And so when we're seeing all this change, the thought was we need to create a platform that's dynamic, that's iterative, that allows us to learn as we go, that engages with people in different ways. Yeah. So with Opportunity in Miami, what we've tried to do is to create a platform where we're elevating ideas on a regular basis, literally sharing original content on a weekly basis and engaging across our community on a daily basis, right? All in an effort to try and elevate solutions that are critical to our economic future, right? And I've identified those 3 areas that we think will be drivers, but of course, with this platform, that can change. So what does that look like for someone like yourself or anyone else engaged with Opportunity Miami? Weekly newsletter. Every other week, have a podcast coming out. doing short form videos, which we call on site, where we go meet entrepreneurs where they are and learn about how they're trying to solve problems critical to our economic future, right? So that could be everything from, and then Q&As, essays, right? And then in-person events too. And so that can look like, for example, we did an on-site where we went down to Homestead to visit Atlantic Sapphire, which is, now, I'll explain what this is, the largest indoor aquaculture facility in the world, right?
Okay.
And so what this is they're doing where tomatoes used to be grown. It's this entrepreneur from Norway who used to harvest salmon.
Oh, aquaponics? Like
Yeah,
that type of thing?
so he would harvest salmon, but do it, in the fjords of Norway, right? But he realized that the carbon footprint was huge, because what do? You catch all these salmon, you put them on airplanes, you fly them around the world, they go into grocery stores, they go to restaurants, and they finally find their way to your dinner table, right? And it's like, but the carbon footprint, massive. So he's like, there's got to be a better way. So he's like, you know what we'll do? He says, we're going to create these giant tanks, and we're going to do it in North America, and then we're going to ship them only by ground across North America. And this will be the biggest producer of salmon in North America, they're betting, right? It's in Homestead.
Yay, awesome.
Right? And by the way, he thinks that they can get to a net zero supply chain. That is, you can imagine a future where that whole facility is powered by solar, by renewables. You can imagine that, right? Or some sort of clean energy. And then once we get to having transport that is zero emission, right? And already, you're seeing lots of people driving around in EVs with zero emissions. Then you think you're just about there.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. So right now, you think about our future, for sure, I was thinking about part of that future and going back to the whole thing around electric vehicles, that for sure, that future, with an EV future, is going to require a whole network of electric car charging stations. Moving away from the gas station, which will eventually, 20, 25 years, you can make the case, all those gas stations we see today will become obsolete, right? Do you know the second largest, if you net out Tesla, the second largest car charging network company in the country is based on Miami Beach?
Really?
Blink, yes. Right? So it's like, so we are those elements of that net zero future that we want to build. So many of those are here. We have to be
if we want to stay afloat.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
You know what's you reminded me with what was it called? Aquaponics. Aquaculture.
Yeah.
There's a company here in Miami. I believe it's in Miami because Francis Suarez shared them the other day, and it's what's it called? I think it's aeroponics. Like it's these women that farm vertical farming.
Oh, dude. So Mayor Suarez, Francis, an old and dear friend, and what he's doing is just incredible. He did something on Imagine Farms, and with Opportunity
Imagine
Miami,
Farms. That was it.
We've done an on-site on Imagine Farms.
Really?
Yeah. So here this company. They're in Little Haiti, these sisters, right? And they are, just you described, these vertical farms. So, and what they're producing, you can go there and you can buy,
produce.
Your lettuce for the week, right there, your greens, whatever it is. And the thing is, as we think about that net zero future, the numbers are crazy, right? It's like from the water usage is like goes down by like more than 90%.
Right.
The amount of land that you need to produce all that food, dramatically smaller. And if you can do, these where you're in close proximity to where your customer is, whether it's a restaurant.
Sold. That's it.
Boom.
I remember years ago, I was actually really into this because the first company, I believe it was the first company I started, was Kimball Musk, Elon Musk's brother, up in Brooklyn, Square Roots.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was super into it, and I was like, oh my God, I want to bring that to Miami. Obviously, it didn't happen, but I'm happy to see it now. Somebody did it.
Oh, yeah, I mean? For sure. For sure. But that, as you think about our future economy, that's an example.
So that's a great example of something Opportunity Miami could probably facilitate or
100%.
Right.
I mean, I think at the outset, as we think about this initiative right now, what we're really focused on is around thought leadership and engagement and elevating solutions, right? So putting at the forefront, having people think about what that future looks like. Well, it looks like Blink. It looks like Imagine Farms. It looks like, Atlantic Sapphire. It looks like, there's a company not far from where we're sitting right now, just north of the airport, Costex. You got to go check it out.
What is
right?
it?
So what they do, They provide parts for heavy machinery, for like tractors, right? So that, you think right there, okay, what's cool about that? I mean, it's great, very successful business. But the amazing thing is they built a new headquarters, a 500,000 square foot warehouse and office, this giant building. And they decided that they were going to cover their entire roof with solar panels. So 90 to 100% of the energy usage every day that comes from the sun.
Sorry, FBL. I actually worked for them for a while.
I did. But, I think that as we think about this future, it can be a win-win-win. FBL can do really well.
They're involved in the solar game too.
And they're leaning into it. Yeah. No, for sure. They're talking about building that net zero future and what we need to do.
So you talked about thought leadership, which is, I guess, the root of everything. Everything starts, with a thought, with an idea. I guess my question is, I'm trying to see how I shape it. Is that something that people, I guess, would come to Opportunity Miami with ideas, or it's something that...
So it's a platform. So you have an idea if you're thinking about that future, right? That the platform is there for you to then share that idea.
That's what I want to communicate. Yes. Like if someone's interested and someone has an idea, how would I
get
involved?
Right? So a couple things. One, you can always reach me at matt@opportunity.miami. You can always reach us at next@opportunitymiami. And that can be ideas for companies who should be focusing on trends that are important as we think about our future, as we think about that Miami of 2040. Also, you can follow us on social media at Opportunity MIA, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all of that, right? Maybe eventually we'll get our TikTok game going. Not yet.
It's important.
It's important.
Gen Z.
I was talking to someone the other day how they have used TikTok. This is a company using TikTok for customer
TikTok
acquisition.
University now.
It's right, next level. So, and then also go to our website, opportunity.miami, subscribe to the newsletter. I write it personally right now, every week, and we try to tell a story, right? Try to tell a story about our city, how it's evolving, and what it can be, right? And the people who are driving that change right now. So those are different touch points to engage in.
My last question before we wrap up, because we're short on time.
No, I so appreciate this time. It's so good to be able to talk.
Of course, man. Appreciate it too. I love engaging with the community and helping out with the community and making Miami such a big city. And I was just telling the previous guest that I don't feel there's a lot of community because it's such a big city. I mean, there is in like neighborhoods and stuff, but there's collectively not a lot of sense of community. So anything you could do to bring people together on a cause or whatever is
those things
excellent.
that sort of cut across all the different parts
that affect
of Miami.
all of us. Yeah.
And it feels like like sports does that, can do that.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I do think I was really all the work around tech and stuff saw a lot of that happening. Mm-hmm. As we think about, my hope is that as we're thinking about our future, right, and where the jobs will be and what we can be as a community, I hope that's something that can serve to bind our whole community. The arts, for sure, the culture. Yeah. These are things that can bind together what is this sort of this amazingly, rich and diverse community.
Absolutely.
And so finding those things that, because as you say, there's so many Miamis. And for sure, it's funny, the other day someone was asking me, they were saying, and there was this person new in town. They say, what's one piece of advice you'd have for life in Miami?
Expect the unexpected.
Yeah, really to that point. What I told the person is I said, keep looking around the corner. Because I know for me and 20 years of living here that I've never gotten bored. But to me, the key to that is never, like, if you feel like, that everyone knows everyone in Miami, I know there are a lot of people who say that very strongly. I would argue, not true. That, in fact, what I've continually found is if you look around, you find a whole nother world that's developing and continuing to do that over and over and over again. I mean, here, where we are now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's true. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Last question again before
we
wrap up is, are there any, I mean, I know it's still a pretty young platform, but are there any current ideas that maybe you have examples of or anything you guys are working on that maybe you want to?
Well, the big one right now, I think that is really trying to share across the community and have people thinking about is seeing that the addressing climate change, particularly sea level rise, as not just sort of this, as I said at the outset, this existential threat, right? This is this thing that presents such a danger to the community, right? To the future of the community, which you can make the argument that it is. And you're right, very much. But to actually see that if we can own this, that this can be something that can create jobs and propel our future economy. Right, and so and understanding that this transition to a net zero economy, this transition to whether it's electric emission-free cars and buses that we have on our roads and trucks and all that, this transition to having homes that are powered by renewable and clean energy, this transition where with super efficient air conditioning units in our homes, this transition to growing our food like Imagine Farms in ways that are crazy sustainable, but it's actually, and by the way, they do that, no pesticides, no preservatives, it's healthier.
I remember that was one of the key points for me.
Yeah, it's like win, right? That in seeing this future is not something, oftentimes it's like, oh, we got to do this, like this is going to be a sacrifice.
It's the opposite.
Is opportunity, right? So let's own it. And so that's really, I think, at the outset here, what is probably the thing that has most distinguished Opportunity Miami at the outset.
I love it. And that's a great mentality to have. Instead of seeing a problem, you see an opportunity. And anywhere in life, not just
100%.
in Miami.
100%.
That perspective makes a big difference.
Right? But isn't that a Miami perspective?
Yeah.
Talk about a place with the grit and resilience. Talk about a place where we're starting anew. Right? That's Miami.
Magic City, baby.
Magic City.
Matt, thank you so much for joining.
So enjoyed this. This was awesome. Yeah. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Great. Absolutely. Whenever you want. Doors are open.
Awesome. So appreciate it.
We can work together. Thank you guys for joining. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. Do all the things as it helps out the podcast. And that's it. That's all the time we got for today. Matt, thank you once again.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
Likewise. Y no se metan con nadie para que nadie se la meta. Have a good one.